become a real Talmud Chacham? Seriously. No, how does a person become a real Talmud Chacham? How do you acquire the trait of becoming a real Talmud Chacham? What does it take? Now, I'm going to quote for you. I copied all this. This is not from me. This comes from Harav HaGaon Rav Meir Eliyahus Shlita. One of the biggest Gedom today. He's a young guy, but the guy is so sharp. He has a sefer that's called, he has a Markevet Argaman. Wow, he has so many things. I copied all the 10 points. I usually have this by my side, meaning I wrote this down for myself because at times the learning gets very hard. It's not easy to sit hours upon hours and just to learn again. Imagine repeating the same thing over to you repeat it to this guy and then again to this guy. It's not easy. But I'll tell you something. When you know the rules, when you know the steps to what it takes to become a Talmud Chacham, it becomes much easier because you know what you're doing is the right thing. I will give you 10 things over here, and we'll see that the 10th one is actually the most important one out of all of them. So he says like this, Rabotai. A lot of times a person thinks when it comes to learning Torah, a person should learn Torah, chick-chack, quick, to get the information in. No. The first rule, he says, Yilmad b'mitinut, b'havana, b'echud ad shitiyah sugim mechuded b'pif. A person needs to learn Torah slowly, with understanding, with quality, until that whatever you are learning is sharp in your mouth like a sword. If you don't know that whatever you're learning, just like you know when if I ask you a question, is your sister forbidden on you? What are you going to answer me? What's the question? Of course, Asur. This is when you learn, this is how cold you have to know you're learning. You shouldn't move on until you know that learning cold, good. That's number one. Number two, how do you reach that? How does a person reach that sharpness? Very simple, which is one of the hardest things to do. He says, Chazarot bilimud. I can't emphasize how important this is. To review. Minimum 4 times. Rabotai, if you don't want to forget your learning, make it 101 times. The Chazal promised us, you'll never forget your learning. 101 times, yeah. So 101 million, man. Yeah. 101 times, you guarantee you'll never forget whatever you learned. That is number 2. Number 3, Rabotai, here's number 3, which is a lot of people break down over here. Lo yitраgesh mehatza'ar, ki hu chelek bilti nifrad mitzamchit b'torah, lechen katet atzmo b'limud, hagam shetzar lo me'od. Rabotai, even when you feel it is hard for you to learn, you don't understand what you're learning, you're tired, you're falling asleep, you're halfway dead, don't let the pressure, the pain allow you to stop learning Torah. This is one of the most important points, one of the most important concepts in growth of Torah is what? You got to push yourself. If there's no pain, there's no gain. You got to push yourself even when it's hard. So therefore go ahead, keep on pushing. Eventually you'll see, you'll snap out of that tiredness. Number 4, Rabotai, here we go. Number 4 is a very hard one. Rabotai, yishtadel lilmod acherim. Try to teach other people. You need to try to, whatever you learned, you want it to be sharp in your mouth, take somebody else, take your son, take your father, take your friend, take anybody. Sit and teach them over whatever you learned. Do not keep it for yourself. I'll tell you the emet, how Chazal tell us, the rabbi gets much more than what the Talmidim get from the rabbi. Why? Because the students, they are the ones that sharpen up the rabbi. So it's very important, teach other people. That is number 4. Guys, number 5, another difficult one. As we're going down, it gets a little bit difficult. Not everybody's going to understand this. But guys, Rabotai, you know something? I want to put it like this. Whenever a person goes to a doctor, correct? If a person goes to a doctor and he needs antibiotics, the doctor prescribes the prescriptions. You want to take it, you go to the pharmacy and you cash it out, whatever, you get the medication. You don't want it, you don't have to take it. But you have to know that that is the medication for you if you want to grow. In that case, if you want the sickness to go away, lo leinu. So he says like this, guys, listen to this. Yima'ed b'ta'anugim. A person should minimize in the pleasures of this world. Not too much, Rabotai. The more a person goes after the pleasures, you know that's how far you are away from Hashem. It's impossible for a person to be pushed after the pleasure of this world and at the same time to try to be a Talmud Chacham. How could that be? You have to minimize. Yima'ed b'ta'anugim. Minimizing the pleasures. But what should you do? Rak ma shetzorich hechrichi lo. Whatever is needed for your survival, whatever is needed for you to be able to continue to serve Hashem, you eat whatever you have to eat, and you get back into learning. Guys, here we go. Another one, number 6. Me'at kol mega'a efshar im ininei ha'olam ve'hakore bo. Guys, try to minimize any contact that's possible with the matters of this world and anything that calls your name to it. Whatever it is, stay away from these things. The more a person is involved with other matters of this world, the less his head is going to be in Torah. Because our mind has compartments. Whatever you fill if you fill your head with garbage, that garbage is going to stay there. That means Torah is not going to be able to go there. Otherwise, if you would have had a clear mind, the Torah would have been able to settle in that place. Rabotai, number 7, when it comes to atachonen, when it comes to the bracha, when Hashem gives us da'at, wisdom, yirbel itpalel al inyan hazikaron, daven by atachonen, la'adam da'at, daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that He gives you, that you should have a good memory, that you should remember whatever you are learning. Number 8, Rabotai, also a hard one. Yihye akshan gadol, be very stubborn when it comes to learning Torah. Do not, I repeat, do not allow things like a windshield wiper. One day your mother-in-law calls you here, the next day your friend calls you here, the next day your cousin calls you there, the next day you have a party over there, the next day, Rabotai. You want to grow in Torah, you have to be stubborn, you have to be able to say two letters. N-O, I can't make it. After learning, we'll see, but if I have time, I come. Otherwise, you should try to be a great akshan, be very stubborn. Rabotai, number 9. Lifrosh mechaverat bnei adam. Separate yourself from people if you want to become great. Do not socialize with a lot of people. You know the problem with being a rabbi? You guys think it's easy, huh? The problem with being a rabbi, meaning community rabbi. Not a rabbi that sits and teaches and learns. A community rabbi. You have to attend the Brit Milah, the Bar Mitzvah, the Chuppah, the Yeshua, whatever it is. When are you going to learn? When is he going to learn? This rabbi in particular calls him the flying rabbi. You have the flying carpet, they call him the flying rabbi. If he's every day, one day here, one day there, one day over there, when is he ever going to sit down and learn Torah? When I say learn Torah, not just to take a Yalkut Yosef and just to glance through it. Sit with a Meilut, 2 hours straight, 3 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours straight. Toil, mama's toil. When is he going to be able to do it? If every day he has a community party, Chanukah Tabayit, etc., etc. Rabotai, lifrosh mechaver bnei adam. That was number 9. You should separate yourself from people. Number 10. Rabotai, this is what I want to show you. I'm telling you, I did Chazar Masechet Berachot today in the morning with a few guys. Whenever you do Chazar, whenever you do learning, when you repeat your learning, always something new comes out. Somehow, something new sprouts out. Rav Meir Yaakov brings down number 10. V'nachtom be'ikar hagadol, Rabotai. He's going to conclude with the most important rule. Sheshakol keneged kulam. This is equal to everything what we just said. Yirat shamayim tohara. A person needs to have fear of Hashem, but it has to be pure. It has to be pure fear of Hashem. And then he says, Sof davar yitchazek ha'adam lo'olam lo ya'esh atzmo. Nevertheless, he says, in the end, a person should always strengthen himself and he should never give up. But I want to just take the time out for number 10. What means Yirat Shamayim Tohara? What means a person needs to have fearing? What means a person has to be God-fearing, but it has to be tahor. It has to be pure. I'll put it to you like this, guys. In Masechet Berachot, there's a whole sugya that speaks about when does Hashem rest on a person, literally. When did the Shekhinah sharuya on a person? When does it come and rest? The Gemara says like this, Rabotai, listen to this. When I tell you this is mind-boggling. Masechet Berachot Dafav Amur Aleph. Uminayin l'shnayim sheyoshvim v'oskim b'Torah. From where do we know that if you have 2 people only, and they're oisik, they're toiling in Torah, Sheshechina imahem, how do you know that the Hashem is there? The Shekhinah, Hashem himself comes down and he's mamish with them there. How do we know? Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Azeni dibru yirei Hashem. Then the God-fearing Jews spoke, Ish el re'ehu, a man to his friend, Vayikshev Hashem, and Hashem listened. Rabotai, Rashi takes this word Vayikshev, and Hashem listened. How does he translate it? Mamtin lahem sham. You guys ready? If Hashem knows there have to be two people that are going to come and learn Torah, He comes before you and He waits for you over there. Can you imagine what that is? He wants to come and hear your Torah. Not only that, the Gemara continues, it's actually recorded. Everything you're going to learn with two people, everything is recorded. They ask a question, over here the Mesivta brings down, I don't understand. Why do you bring me a pasuk that says, Yirei Hashem? What do you mean? God-fearing people. One man said to his friend, why God-fearing? And what, if the person is not God-fearing? What, it's a bad thing? Yes or no? Look what the Mesivta brings down in Ot Chavdalet. Rabotai, you know what means Asdi Debru Yirei Hashem? You know what means then the God-fearing people spoke? You know what that means? Rabotai, listen carefully. This is what I want to bring out. Sheken en hashechina shuruya al ha'oisik b'Torah ela kishu yirei shamayim. Don't think you have two people sitting and learning Torah that the Shekhinah, Hashem's presence, is going to rest upon you. It will not rest upon you. The only time it's going to rest upon you when? Only if those two people that are sitting and learning, they have Yirei Shamayim. They're God-fearing Jews. They're afraid of Hashem. Not time they come as like a history book, Chas v'Shalom. They mamish, they have Yirei Shamayim. Then Hashem says, I'm going to come. But Rabotai, listen to this carefully. She'im lo came, because if you don't have that God-fearing part in you, and Torotomu ilolo, your Torah, what you're learning, doesn't help you. These are harsh words. A person needs to know he has to be God-fearing in order to learn Torah. You know, there's one of the criteria that are met. When a person learns Torah, he has to learn be'ema, verated, v'zeya, with fear, with trepidation, with sweat. It's as if you got it in Har Sinai. That's why you have to be afraid. That's what he says over here, Rabotai. Uke'amar Chachamim Masech Shabbat Dav Lamur Aleph Amur Aleph. Kol Adam Sheish Bo Torah. If you see a person that has Torah, ve'en bo yirei shamayim, and he does not have fear of heaven, domeh legizbar shemasru lo miftachot hapnimiyot, u'miftachot hachitzoniyot lo masru lo. He's compared to a treasurer that they gave him the inner keys to the vault, but they never gave him the outer keys how to get into this whole room where the vault is. What is your Torah worth if you do not have Yirei Shamayim, Rabotai? That's why a person has an obligation. The Mishnah brings down that there's a chiyuv, minimum there's a chiyuv, at least 5, 10, 15 minutes a day for a person to learn Musar. If a person does not learn Musar, his Torah unfortunately will not help him, Rabotai. If you want the Torah to help you, you have to change. The Torah changes you. You know, unfortunately you have today like this. People walk into the shi'ur and they walk out. You know the difference? If you walked into the shi'ur and you came out a different person, you know that Torah penetrated you, changed you. But if you walked in and you came out, Rabotai, people need to see doctors. Why? Because it cannot be the Torah so holy that is fire. It can mold the most toughest people. It can break anything. The blueprint of the world. It cannot change us, human, basar and flesh, blood and flesh. It cannot change us. Rabotai, that's why if you ever go to Shurim, you always have to go to places where it's going to make an impact on your life. Don't just attend because you want to sleep good at night, Rabotai. You sleep good now, but after 120, you won't be sleeping so good. So therefore, every person should be careful. Baruch Adonai Olam. Amen. Amen.